Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Analysts Gone Wild. And today we are meeting at 12 noon Eastern. And I don't know, everybody is probably at a different time zone. So sometimes translation could be hard. So we will be making some more changes in the new year. And we are going to meet on Fridays in the new year as opposed to Thursdays we were meeting. Sometimes we'll make changes to the time. So the best way to know the changes is probably follow me and hit the bell button. That's probably the easiest way to get notified. Now, let's start the introduction. Thomas, do you want to go first?
If you insist. But we agreed on not having fun and go right into business. So I'm
no
Thomas
fun, please.
CEO, Principal Analyst of Ahead CRM. As the name of my company suggests, I'm covering mainly CRM-ish topics, which includes CX, and from there on, AI and the wider business enterprise software arena.
Yeah, Thomas is always ahead in his CRM game, and he's already at AI. Thank you so much for being here, Thomas. Ken, do you want to go next?
Sure thing. Hey, my name is Ken Gonzalez, otherwise known as Ken Gon. So please call me Ken Gon. I'm a lead advisor and founder at Pretty Simple Group. I cover CIO, infrastructure and operations, and where AI intersects with all that kind of mess. So glad to be here.
Okay, Kangon, and I like to be lazier. So whatever is shorter is probably for me, to be completely honest. But Kangon, thanks for being here. John, do you want to go next?
Sure. John Santaferraro. I'm the founder and CEO of Ferraro Consulting, also the head research analyst there, and the host of the Digital Analyst podcast, now over 800,000 views in a little over a year. So go Digital Analyst.
Growing at AI speed. Every time you have 200,000 more. Thanks for being here, John. Okay, so we are going to have John confusion again. John, do you want to go next?
Who?
John with an H and without an H.
My name's Fred. Sorry, I may have called into the wrong show. Okay. Anyway, yes, my name is John Hansen. I am the founder, lead editor of Procurement Insights, which is one of the oldest procurement industry blogs in the industry. Been around since 2007, but prior to that, I worked, and this was going to be interesting for this segment, in the late 90s, the Government of Canada's Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program funded my research into a theory called Strand Commonality, in which I used advanced self-learning algorithms and nascent AI. So I've been working with AI since 1998 for the Department of National Defense. So it's an interesting perspective that I see AI where it is today and where it's heading. So it should be a fun conversation.
Yeah, John always sounds very intelligent, and that has gone above my head. And I think the other John was wondering as well. But thank you so much for being here, John. All right, a little bit about me. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Today we don't have Robert, so I'm going to be your host. If you are in the audience, we always love your any sort of comments, stories, experiences, whatever you have. I have a lot of questions, so I rely on them, to be completely honest. Okay, so now we are going to move to the first story. I'm going to do a little briefing, guys, and then you guys can offer your commentary and experiences. So we have Pipefy today, and Pipefy, and I always get confused in this Pipefy, Pipedrive. I don't know why they choose similar names in the very similar industry. So here, this is Pipefy, and Pipefy is a newer baby compared to Pipedrive, which is in the CRM category. Pipefy, my understanding is that they are more into process automation, slightly more AI native development, low code, no code, maybe you could call that, of the new AI world, as opposed to the. So here, Pipefy, what they are doing, they have done the IDP, which is very RPA play in my mind. They have launched that. What else is going on? More accurately, this is a very similar play as APN, if my understanding is right. I think they have done. They have covered very similar market as well. I don't know who else is there in this market, but this is a very low code, no code, the custom development enablement sort of market, and this always plays there. This particular play, which is going to be documentation, there is going to be a big need for industries such as your banking, insurance, etc. So now I'm going to open up the floor. Anybody wants to go first? No comments.
Well, you know what? How about this? Because it's interesting, because AI. Gartner did a report the other day saying that 85% of CIOs do not believe their teams have the necessary skills to utilize the latest technologies. And that includes AI. A case in point, and it's popping up more and more, is the CIOs coming forward and saying, well, we're going to put the brakes on AI initiatives, because the reality is we don't know how to drive these Ferraris that you're giving us.
Yeah.
And the overall truth over the last 30, 40 years is that the challenges with implementation have never been about the technology. The technology has always worked.
Yeah.
The challenges has always been about the readiness of an organization to absorb that technology and put it to use. And so historically, we see an 80% failure rate. Now, this is an interesting point, and I'm going to offer this, and then we can expand. But in the first, let's call it the FEC era, 75% or 70% of initiatives failed. In the next level, when SaaS came in, 75%. And these are all statistics. So if somebody wants me to back them, I certainly will provide that. And then in the AI era, 80 to 85% of initiatives are failing. So the question I'm raising in all of this is, why are we concentrating on the technology and what the vendors are doing? Why aren't we concentrating on the users, the practitioners, and where their skill levels are and how they can absorb it? Because all I've learned, and I'm going to go back to that old saying I learned 40 years ago when I first came into high tech, is if garbage in, garbage out. If you automate a poor system or process, all you're going to have is poor results faster. Okay, so I don't know. Am I starting that off on too negative of a tone?
No, I think I completely agree with you for the most part. I'm going to offer one quick tip in terms of talking about failure rate. If you want to talk about that, especially for LinkedIn views, you never want to quote less than 70% of failure rate, because you are not going to get any views there. Okay, so 75%, 80%, 90%, they look good, guys. All right, anybody else?
Well, now that we are a little off topic, so what I would answer, John, is that this clearly shows two things. First is the utter failure in leadership of those CIOs, because they are the ones who need to and the other C-level execs, they need to educate and train their people instead of firing them. This is part one. And part two is it's also a matter of how success gets measured and how the systems are getting implemented. Usually often they are not implemented for the users, but for management.
That you're absolutely right on that. That's why the case that I was talking about yesterday, that was on LinkedIn, the CIO went against the grain and said, no, we're not going forward with this AI initiative. I don't have the answers to the questions that I need to properly align it. Now, how many, and I think we're going to be seeing an emerging trend called walkaway scores. And walkaway scores for both practitioners and providers when they come into an untenable situation. What percentage of providers would walk away from a sure deal? They're selling the technology, it's great or whatever, even if they know it's not going to work. And that isn't because they're trying to be dishonest. They've built their solution from a technology first standpoint. Yeah. What provider or practitioner is going to turn around and admit, I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't feel comfortable with this. So you have everybody smiling at each other as these new breakthrough technologies come. And quite frankly, in 10 years from now, I would hazard a guess that agentic AI will be viewed in the same way as the 10 gigabyte hard drive and the 2800 baud modem was way back when, because it isn't a technology problem, but we're going to still be in the same place unless we change our approach.
I think you're right about the role of the CIO, but there are some that are out there doing it right. I had a conversation with a CIO that basically, as he enacted and put into practice his AI lab, in order to get a project even into the lab, it had to have a technology sponsor and a business sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
And within the lab, they had to prove measurable business value that would be created by what comes out of the lab. And because he put that governance on what goes in, what came out actually had business value. And when I was talking to him, he had 50 projects in the lab, and he already had 25 projects that had come out of the lab. And they were all producing value for him, but he did it as the entry point. So it wasn't a technology initiative; it was a business initiative.
Excellent.
This is a whole different. And this is Analysts Gone Wild. It's like we're not. It's a little bit of a revolt. We're not going to talk about the news.
AI gone wild in the lab, John.
Well, no, but you're right? I mean, the last part of the puzzle should be the technology.
Yeah.
The first part should be the internal agent alignment, external agent alignment, and then the ability for the organization to absorb that. And I think in a lot of ways, they say, hey, it's easier just to sell a solution and then give check marks of progress as to what it's doing without actually saying what is the outcomes. And to your point, John, he said, listen, I want to know what the outcomes are. I'm going to properly gate this initiative, and I'm going to leverage the technology. And if the technology at any point in time doesn't seem to be delivering that value, then I'm going to off-ramp it. And I'm going to focus on, where it does work, where it doesn't work. If it's a person or internal problem, we'll identify it at that stage before we bet the farm on it. I think that's really what you're saying, isn't it, John?
Yeah, exactly. It's what goes in, right? You don't try and figure out business value on the other side, and you don't make your investments, especially in AI technology, without having clear business objectives and measurable value that will come out of it.
So why don't we do that?
Because we are analysts.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because there are CEOs who don't fully understand it, and they're pushing too fast as well. They're out of fear. It's fear. A lot of it is fear-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But isn't that part of the analyst problems, though, in the way general analyst firms, how many companies, and I'm not trying to be nasty, but how many firms make money by saying, oh, wait a second, we did a readiness assessment. This company is not ready for the technology. Let's do it right first, like your CIO, John, did. Let's do it right first. How many analyst firms or consultancies or procure tech providers will say, yeah, let's delay the sale? I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, we need to come back to the topic. We are talking about Pipefy right now. Okay, and we have a comment.
We call you Captain Blythe from now on.
I know, I'm sorry.
Well,
guys.
on the topic of this specific release, number one, Agents 2.0. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too optimistic for my tastes. Yeah. And I'm with you, Sam. I think that when I read this, I was looking at this as though, okay, so now we've got RPA on steroids. Is that what we're talking about here? I mean, I certainly understand that we've got unstructured data and we want to make better use of the unstructured data, but are we really, really getting at the essence here of that we're now going to be able to have more utility come from our analysis of the unstructured data just because of this? I'm very skeptical on this point.
Same here, and I wouldn't say optimistic. What I would say, sorry, John, if I interrupt. Looking at that, Salesforce is around edition 4 of Agentforce. Version 2 is probably a bit behind the curve, which is likely true with IDP as well. I mean, IDP is table stakes meanwhile. So, and in continuation of our banter, this is, and what Alan writes, this is not a Ferrari, this is something, well, a classic Ferrari probably, something that should have been there for a bit longer, which for them, from a Pipefy point of view, is basically catching up with the competition. And the competition that they have in the workflow automation area is, well, significant, very significant. Let's look at ServiceNow, UiPath.
Yeah, I'm gonna call out. Please stop the hype. This is an intelligent document management company that now, and I'm going to read this. Pipefy is a global artificial intelligence platform that agents. Excuse me. Excuse me.
All right. Now, you see, this is the thing. Even if you got the parts to assemble it, as Alan referring to that comment, and built the Ferrari, no one would be able to drive it anyway. So what's the point of assembling it? I mean, I know I drive, and I'm pretty good with that. I love that old beater. Put me behind a jet panel plane, I'm not sure I'd know how to fly it. And so all these I remember Web 2.0, Web 3.0, Web 4.0, we're going that same path again with AI, and it's all hype. I'm not trying to be critical, but we're all reasonable analysts and responsible, but I think it's not just we're actually out there on the gridiron, if you will. We're actually out there trying to make these things work, and we see the real front lines, what it looks like. And I mean, there's a lot of good AI companies out there. There's a lot of good organizations out there, but it's all getting swept up into this Collins doom loop hype that if you don't get it now, FOMO, you're going to fall behind. So let's put it in there. And then 6 months, 9 months later, I mean, I don't know, Sam, how many, you probably remember, but I recently read statistics were saying how many of these AI initiatives are being abandoned, what percentage?
So AI is a little higher always. It has to be higher. Come on, guys. It's AI. So I think that's 90%.
But what Pipefy is doing is extracting information from documents using AI. This is not rocket science. It's not agentic, and it certainly is not the orchestration of AI agents. It is. Please just say what you do and do what you say. It's called integrity, and this frustrates me. I think this lacks integrity. Just tell your customers what you do, how you're doing it, and quit trying to save the world.
All right, guys. More comments on the story. If you don't have anything else, we can move to the next one. Okay. By the way, Alan, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for the comment, and keep those comments coming. We'd love to see more of those. Okay, so now we have the next story, and this is coming from Sage AI, and they are saying Sage AI trust label now live. I actually like this story a lot. I don't know if this is a big deal, to be completely honest, and I don't know how many vendors are going to follow this. It seems that Sage is championing this approach. They are trying to create some sort of framework. I don't know if we are going to get a stamp from the government, but I like this a lot, overall, in terms of providing the label where the insight is coming from, to bring a little bit more accountability. There's a name of the framework here, which is US NIST AI Risk Management Framework. I don't know if they are going to incorporate this as part of their policy, which could be very interesting. So I'll open up the floor again. Again, the topic is Sage AI.
No fundamental criticism. Oh man.
Where's my pitchfork? Where's my pitchfork and torches?
I tend to agree with you, Sam. So this is a bit of refreshing in the sense that they jump on the same train as Zoho. So we all lack trust in this particular technology for good and bad reasons. And if this is not only a label, but lived, then this is actually quite good news that should be promoted a bit more aggressively also by other companies. Yeah. So, and that part I really like. So is it a really big deal? I don't know, but it's definitely a step into the right direction, because what matters most is not the dollar, because the dollar is a consequence, and that consequence comes only if there's trust.
Yeah, could not agree more, Thomas. Anybody else has any comments on the story?
Yeah,
I do. So
I'd
the
say this
thing I
issue
really
of
appreciate about this release.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we are going to have a little competition here. Hang on. I'll help.
Okay. The thing I really appreciate about this release is, regardless of how one might say this is mature or not, I think that this is an example of like being a market leader, like leadership in a market space. Because I think that the trust conversation is a critical one to have. Anything around trust, around governance, around ethics and AI, this is all ripe territory for being explored. And certainly Sage has a lot of coverage from a vertical perspective. So I think that they are well positioned to be able to bring a meaningful voice to the conversation about what this is about. And I would love to see more people take up on it and start joining in. And so now it's a chorus of voices as opposed to just one firm.
Yeah, and they also have a lot of influence on the accounting community. And as we all know, anything that comes from the accounting world must be trusted right away. Okay, John, you had a comment. Sorry, John with H.
No. You know, wait a second. Which one? Me?
Fred.
I'm confused.
It's very confusing.
John H is John with an H, but show is John.
Oh, right. I thought you were saying John with an H for Hansen.
That's
okay,
confusing,
I'll be
I
quiet.
know.
I'll be quiet and I'll wait my turn.
No.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
John. Go ahead, please.
Well, you know what? I've got to tell you, this is a very interesting thing, because the black box fear has been continuously an obstacle, especially for the CFO and the finance. We don't know what's happening, what's doing. And so what I like about this is that it shows recognition towards greater transparency in how the numbers are arrived at. It's not like smoke and mirrors. I mean, there's still elements of challenge with it, yes, but I think they're moving in the right direction to try to remove the fear, put in the proper guardrails, and say, look, you know, this is how we come out with this answer. And this is where your human involvement and human in the loop come in, because then you're able to verify that. You're able to see what you're verifying rather than just giving a rubber stamp. So that's why I like the direction they're heading.
Yeah, could not agree more. So, Mr. Santaferraro, I think I'm going to do this a little old-fashioned way. You know, that's probably going to be a little bit more manageable.
Yeah, I agree with John H. That this is absolutely the way to go. And Sage, they talked about their history, right? They published their data ethics and AI ethics in 2023. Now they're providing this transparency, which I think is really important. And it shows me that they're on the right path. I'm already, I was briefed by a vendor about 3 weeks ago that is it's Latticeflow AI, and they are now operationalizing these kinds of things within platforms, within complex platforms, so that and they have over 200 different guardrails that can be put in place around AI to be able to look not just at the model, but also at that is starting to spring up. So this is absolutely the right direction to go. And I could see somebody like Sage now, if they're serious about this, partnering with these new AI governance vendors that are appearing that are actually operationalizing this. But transparency of what's happening in the AI models is absolutely the right direction to go. So bravo to you, Sage.
Okay, amazing. And we have one comment from the audience. I'm going to read this for our listeners, and this is coming from Sunil. So he's saying, such new AI product releases create optimism on one side, and also generate on all stakeholders, corporates, analysts. I love the word analyst. Okay, thank you for throwing in there. Curious learners to keep watching the space for being updated and stay informed. As I am from the accounting field, so that means this comment must be accurate. No, sorry, I'm just picking up on accountants today. I always remains skeptical to accept without vouching success stories first. Any comments on this one, guys?
He's right.
He's definitely right. It's a fairly balanced comment.
The challenge is not necessarily the success stories. The challenge for me starts far earlier. It is something done in a way, in a newish way, that could have been done exactly the same way, or is already done exactly the same way in a not so newish way. And instead of doing it efficiently, just do it, well, expensively. That's for me the base question. So does it add value? Is basically the point behind it. And that I often doubt is, for example, in the next one. But here we are talking about transparency, so that should help in getting answers for problems.
Yeah, could not agree more. Thank you so much, Thomas. Anybody else have any comments on the story? It can be fairly trusted, I guess, when we are talking about trust. So, okay, I'll move to the next one. All right. So here we are talking about Aquant, and I have no idea who they are. This is the first time I'm coming across them, and it seems like they have launched an agent library, which should not be a shock for anyone. Everybody's launching something related to AI agents. And here they are doing evaluation of service contracts for margin improvement. And seems like they are in that whole, I would call them in more of the field service space. And I would have loved if we had Jan Burian here. I think he has a lot of experience in the field service space, but I think we can manage today without him. So here, again, this is field service, and they are doing from the technical expertise to IoT signals. And a lot of vendors in this space, they are all launching these capabilities. And I don't know if these guys are slightly more legacy vendor or newer vendor. Maybe you guys have slight more insight into them. So I'll open up the floor now. No comments.
Yeah, Aquant itself, I don't really know as well. But when I look at this release, I am wondering what is really new. So, okay, there are 25 agents. There's talk about workflow and the grounding in company data. So the cynic in me says, okay, they rebranded their workflows and processes they had before and call them agent now. That's the cynic in me.
Okay. You know what? Because if I heard you correctly, this is a services type of play, correct?
Field service.
Field service. All right.
Yeah.
Let me talk about the Department of National Defense. Because their field technicians were responsible for supporting the entire nation's IT infrastructure. And when they called me in 1998, they said, we've got a problem. We need our parts delivered by 97% next day. And they're only at 51% next day. So automate our procurement system. I looked at them and I said, well, before we do that, what time of day do orders come in? And they looked at me like I just, hit my head. But here was the problem. The field service technicians were being rewarded or incentivized by how many service calls they could get in the day. And technically, they were supposed to order parts after each call. What they would do is sandbag all the orders until the end of the day So two ththings happened. Number one, and this was MRO parts support in the IT infrastructure, a $100 part at 9 a.m. would become 900 or 1,000 by 4 p.m. They would then have to rush it and get 90%, 90% of those parts from south of the border, which meant it had to clear customs. So I looked at it and I said, well, we could speed up the procurement side of the function, but if they're still going to operate in that way,
Yep.
Now the tie around, and this is where I want to know how AI would know how to ask these questions versus a human. If you do the tie around, and nobody had that mapped out, if you do the tie around, they were having trouble meeting the close rates for those service calls. They were in their wound because they would sandbag. Part wouldn't come in on time. They couldn't get the part on time. They couldn't thus solve the problem and get up and operational. But if I hadn't asked, what time of day do your orders come in? And just focused on automating what was known and saying we can make it better. Here's the statistics. And that's the biggest problem with AI. It's not AI. It's more than just prompting and context. It's more than just feeding in information that already exists. You've got to challenge your scope and say, who are the human agents? Internally and externally. Before you get to the ontology, you've got to look at internal and external agents and see the impact, because one breakdown along the way and that automation will not deliver the results. So you may have a silo success, but you're not going to have a collective enterprise success. Does that make sense? Do you see where I'm going on this?
It does, and there are a lot of layers in that conversation. And John, and by the way, I mean, what you are championing and here is that we should be integrating this with the ERP flows, because if we want your field services workflow to be integrated with procurement, that means we are talking about integrating ERP flows. Now, generally, that is a non-starter, to be completely honest, in the field services space. Okay, and Thomas is going to talk about that services workflow, and field service could be more of the CRM, why they should not be integrated with your enterprise workflows. Now you are talking about AI, whether AI is going to solve any of these problems. AI underneath, what it does, especially if you are talking about agentic capabilities, okay, it also explores the web. The way AI works, it fakes. It really does fake. Okay, it fakes to be right. It's never right. Okay, so now what AI is going to do is, if AI is going to wait for ERP workflow to complete, it can never be within nanosecond that it is trying to promise. Okay, and when you have to deliver at that speed, you compromise on accuracy. But for these workflows, when you talk about part order, part accuracy, you do need, firm supply, firm procurement, firm MRP engine and everything. And I don't think that is going to be solved anytime soon, because there is a real conflict here in terms of the expectations.
And that is why 80% of all initiatives fail.
It is.
They do. I mean, listen, I've got 4 decades of case studies going back, including Hewlett-Packard, government, public sector, private sector, where I've interviewed, analyzed, and the statistics of all these things. Yeah. The reality is where, and I agree with what you're saying, but that's on the ontology level. Yeah. That isn't, you're not even ready to get to that level. And that's where all this AI is starting. And AI is only as good as reliable, has the communication and collaboration that you provide with it, and not a single entity, but multi-models, because each have their own backgrounds of learning. I use a 6 model, soon to be 12 model AI platform, RAM 2025, to do analysis. And first level, they rarely ever agree with each other. But if you don't have a human in there doing the context, so your point is correct. You're going to put in a brand new stereo with great air conditioning in a car that is about to have an engine blow. The stereo works great. You've installed it properly. Yeah. But guess what? You're sitting in your driveway for the rest of the year. And
I have a little bit of a different perspective on this, because we've seen the power of large language models, what they can do. We've seen the specificity of them. 2026 is the year of the small language model, and Aquant is really specific AI for organizations who serve, build, and sell complex equipment. Because they have in their possession very specific domain knowledge for that particular area, their IP can fit into a small language model. In fact, that's the only way to preserve your IP as a services company, as someone who is serving services companies with their technology. What they're doing, if they understand the roles that are necessary for this particular area, and they have that in their data set and in their documents, their small language model is so much more powerful for people in their target, in their specific industry, than anything that companies will get from a large language model.
Yeah.
So
you're right. You're right.
I think this is actually, I think we'll see this all throughout 2026.
You said something right off the top, John, that made sense. They know the model, they have the expertise and the experience, and thus they can properly direct the AI and work the AI to get the answers they need. And I think that's exceedingly true. The problem is that AI is being sold as a case study, one size fits all, and everybody's the same. And nobody asks, do they have that experience? Do they have that expertise in the business? And quite frankly, if you don't have that business knowledge, and I'll go back to what I said, which I think supports what you're saying, John, how would AI know to ask what time of day do orders come in, or even if that's relevant? I knew because of years of experience and process development, and you look for those things. A lot of people don't have that, and they're going to put AI in. And no matter how great AI is, if they don't have that human knowledge and ability and human in the loop, they're not going to get the results that they want to get. But it's not easy to sell that. You got to get ready for it. You know, so I agree with you 110%, John. Those companies that specialize will find the 20% of companies who understand how the real world works isn't looking for a silver bullet. And I talked with a couple of providers over these last couple of months who've actually walked away from business. There should be a walk-away score, by the way, as an analyst, awarding these people for doing that, because they saw that there wasn't a fit. The client wanted A, B, C, D when they said, well, you got to do A first, then C, then D in this order. And they said, no, that's the way we always do it. So that's the key difference. You hit the nail on the head. What's the specialty? What's the expertise? And that through that expertise, you can choose the right clients to work with. Doesn't mean they're going to listen, though. So sometimes you'll go in and recommend it, and they'll say, like a doctor, take this medicine. They'll come around and say, nah, I'll do something else. You can't help that. But that's not a technology problem.
Yeah, great points, guys. I don't know if you guys have any other points, but they are definitely onto something in terms of their tailored model expertise for 2026. So thank you so much once again. So here we have IFS. IFS, as you guys know, is the ERP vendor. And even them, I guess, I mean, a lot of newer kids are talking about how cool ERP they are. And IFS is probably moving away from that positioning. They are saying that, hey, I'm not going to talk about ERP anymore. I'm going to talk about industrial AI. And that's the new term that they have coined. A lot of companies are taking very similar approach as IFS. QAD is one. And in this particular case, they have done their release of IFS Cloud, 2025 R2. And this is a very similar release strategy of many ERP vendors. So here, I guess one of the things that they have done is the whole consumption integration of IFS Loops is the company that they had acquired. Yeah. IFS Loops, and I don't know whether you guys have analyzed this or not, but IFS Loops look very similar. If you look at their agents, they don't look like industrial AI in terms of capabilities perspective. They look a lot more field service, customer service, the place ServiceNow has. And in my mind, when I look at this, and obviously ServiceNow is moving pretty much everywhere. Okay, they are moving into the CRM play, they are moving into the field service play. They were in a lot field service play. So obviously there is a real threat for IFS's business model there. So I guess, I mean, but if you look at their agents, they don't sound very industrial in my mind, at least. You have customer order manager. That's not very industrial. But they are talking about industrial AI. So thoughts, guys?
Well, I'll start off and say that just from the movements that IFS is making, I'm actually pretty impressed. I thought that their acquisition of the Loops was a really good strategic move. I think that they are working on building out capability in different areas that they've previously not been really recognized for, and specifically around IT service management. I think they've got a real opportunity to start crafting a new narrative, and I think that we see that with this particular release. And I share your skepticism around the whole industrial, but it might just be that they weren't able to find a suitable moniker for it to actually show how they're different. And I can certainly appreciate that challenge in today's environment, but I'd like to see more.
Yeah, great points, Ken. Anybody else has any comments? Thomas, if you are talking, you're on mute right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I mean, I think they're wise to not roll it out. Find, across the whole platform, find some areas where they know that their customers are going to get value quickly, get those customers adopting the technology and expand from there. The biggest problem with AI adoption is never the technology, it's the humans, and how fast can they actually adopt the new technology as these vendors roll it out. So I think it's an okay strategy. These are areas that they know they can solve. It was probably part of the Loop expertise anyway, and the Loop technology. Put it into practice and now grow. Get the customers using it and let it grow throughout the IFS platform.
Yeah, Thomas.
I think their challenge here right now with this particular release is a bit timing, because as it comes across as, hey, we are doing the same. And to Kengon's, well, business AI is already given away or taken, means they needed to find something else. Industrial is probably the next best thing with their focus on heavy industries. But they are moving strong, and they exhibit a timing that is, let's say, 2 months late. And hence they are coming across as Me Too's, which is a bit sad, actually, because they are increasingly, since they are focusing more and more, a credible alternative to, well, name your pick of the ERP vendors.
Yeah, great points, guys. If you guys don't have anything else in this story, then let's move to the next one. Unless, John Hansen, do you have anything by any chance?
No, I just, sometimes it's always better to listen.
Okay, so then we can move to the next story, if you like. So here we are talking about Salesforce, and obviously it has to be about AI and agent. Here we are talking about Agentforce. They have launched Agentforce, and by the way, I don't know whether you guys have heard this announcement or not. I think Salesforce is trying to change their name because they have a real threat from the AI native vendors, because everybody wants AI in 2026. So here they used to call this not-for-profit cloud, but now they are going to reword this and they are going to call Agentforce a not-for-profit. I think it's going to have very similar functional capabilities. The real difference would be that now it's going to have an agentic layer on top of the core not-for-profit business object as well as workflows. And my understanding is that, they are really leveraging Slack, and Slack makes so much sense, especially if you talk about community engagement from the agentic capabilities perspective. AI made everything conversational, but I don't know whether Salesforce could see this or they got lucky, I guess, with Salesforce acquisition, Slack acquisition. But now everything is conversational and Slack is all about conversations. So this is a marriage made in heaven, and I appreciate, Salesforce acquisition and strategy. They're really smart in how they attack the market. So I'll open up the floor now.
Two things about this. So first off is I like the comment that you put on the screen. It's like, when you're dealing with not-for-profits, where is the profits? Where's the money? and that is indeed problematic. But I think the real benefit behind this particular approach is, number one, you've got a good test bed for working with organizations to discover new ways to be innovative on how you apply your technology set to dealing with the challenges that not-for-profit organizations have. And then the second thing is I think that you seed a potential customer base of people who, I use this in my volunteer work. Why can't I use this in the organization that I work with? So I think it's a very smart way of being, kind of shoehorning your way into the door where you probably would not get access to other people who can serve as advocates for bringing your product into the firm that they work in.
So just to be clear, Kangan, the comment that I had on the screen, it's related to funding. Sales, not-for-profit, when people think about them, they might not come across as generating profit. But if you look at vendors such as Salesforce, a not-for-profit is one of the major markets for them, to be completely honest. And that's why they have very lucrative strategy for not-for-profit. But here, the problem is different. Right now, not-for-profit, they just don't have any funding, because who's going to fund them to be kind anymore? So that's where the real problem is. But these guys are saying, hey, I'm going to change everything. You don't have to worry about the commoditized activities, and AI is going to solve all of your problems. But the problem is very different. That is funding. Who's going to fund AI when you don't have money in the market is going to be a question. So that would be my take on this.
I think the nonprofit is a legitimate market. I mean, the largest nonprofit in the United States has revenue, I'm going to call it revenue or income, of $12 billion.
Yeah.
And then you've got 11 billion, 9 billion, 7 billion, 7 billion, 4 billion, 4 billion, 3 billion, 3 billion. It's like, give me a piece of that. It's a legitimate market to serve as a company. And it's, instead of customer relationship manage, it's donor relationship management. It's been a legitimate market for Salesforce all along. I think it continues to be. It's just another industry they're going after.
Well, could I throw something in here? Because, and two thoughts came to my mind right off the bat. Number one, the underserved mid-market that is woefully underserved with any technology, let alone AI. But when you look at it, I remember doing some work and covering a story for the Salvation Army. And, if you look at it, if you reduce administrative burden, that has a bottom line impact on cost. If you enhance fundraising and engagement, that has an impact on that as well. I mean, is there not a way that you could look at all of these end results, improve volunteer operations, all of these things, that you can assign a dollar figure to? Like, for example, with the D&D, within 18 months, we took them from 23, the collective buying groups, from 23 buyers down to 3. So that may not look like real money, but that is real money or real resources. So, why isn't there a business plan that goes to that, saying, okay, here's where we save money, which means we're getting more return on your invested or your donated dollars? I mean, am I at a left field here?
No, I think there's all of that. Every single one of those things exist in donor relationship management. It's the same exact thing. There's 50 companies in the United States with over $1 billion of revenue. So everything. How long does it take from contact to donation? What is the profile of the donors that are the biggest donors? Where can I find more of those donors? Even though it is a non-for-profit organization, it is about revenue and income.
Yeah, but I mean, in those ROI arguments, I guess one thing that most people miss is the cost of technology. So sure, I mean, you can talk about reducing administrative burden, but technology is not meant to be cheap, and that's probably the reason why mid-market is so underserved, because they cannot afford technology. They don't have the right level of maturity to be able to implement technology.
You just said something. Wait, this flashed it. This is perfect. That's brilliant. They don't have the maturity, and they're not making the investment. Why don't we have an EVA model, Commonwealth of Virginia EVA model? In the early 2000s, they launched Eva, and they had Ariba. And by the way, they said their program would have worked with anybody, not Ariba. It wasn't Ariba's success. Ariba was just one they worked with. But they had already lined up and had done their work as to what they wanted to do, what they wanted to accomplish. And they went to Ariba and they said, you're going to put in this solution. I'll tell you what, we're not going to pay you upfront money. We're going to pay you transactional throughput money. So in other words, you're going to start being rewarded for outcomes versus for hitting implementation milestones. That's the biggest problem with the industry in general. Why are we not saying to the big companies, forget about these upfront? I mean, one of the early complaints against ERPs was the monthly maintenance fees I had to pay, and they get locked in there. The reality is, especially with AI, we should be looking at an entirely new model where there's an upfront engagement fee that's accessible, and then a shared outcome result. Because if you don't trust that you're going to deliver results, then why are you taking on the client?
Yeah, somebody's dancing in their head right now. Somebody's talking about outcome finally, right, Thomas? Okay, so let's do one more story.
Actually, Mike Boyson is doing that very well too. So he recently put out a piece that was very strong into that direction.
Yeah, perfect. So let's do one more story. So this is also about Salesforce. So Salesforce, I mean, there are a lot of stories in the market for this week. And unfortunately, this is going to be the last show for the year. So we'll not be able to cover all of them. But here, a lot of AWS announcements because AWS conference was there. So here they are talking about deepening the collaboration with AWS. And obviously, Salesforce was talking about creating their own infrastructure. I don't know where they are. Maybe they stepped back a little bit because of all this AI. Now they have a real threat. So maybe they are not able to afford the infrastructure. So now they are again talking about deepening their relationship with Amazon, and they are also deepening with Google, by the way. That was the recent announcement. So here they have published their Agentforce 360 platform that is going to be available in the marketplace directly on Amazon. I don't know how many IT buyers are going to sign a multi-million-dollar deal buying from a marketplace. That doesn't make a ton of sense, I guess. But I'll open up the floor now for your comments, guys.
Well, this is basically the same story that SAP tells all the time. Strengthen the ties with the infrastructure vendors because you are not doing infrastructure on your own for good and bad reasons, which is a strategic business decision. And why do companies like those two S companies do it? Because companies like Oracle and Microsoft, for example, or Zoho on a smaller scale, they have it all in-house and have all the benefits that are marketed in this release and in other ones right out of the bat. So they have it in-house, and you need to be able to counter that story while being able to say, hey, I'm flexible too. You do not need to be all on Azure like if you're Microsoft, or on Oracle like you're Oracle.
Yeah, could not agree more. I think every vendor does that, and sometimes alliances could be far more powerful than the product itself.
I mean, of course, from a wording point of view, this is purely Microsoft. Sorry. This is purely Salesforce, and Salesforce is known for if they have one thing that is better than their software, that's their marketing department.
Yeah, they definitely are very good. Okay, more comments, guys?
Kind of a strange Salesforce announcement that there wasn't much in it about integration with AI capabilities in the AWS platform. It just was all about Salesforce. So if you're going to show up at a vendor conference like AWS Invent, of course you have to bring news because everybody does. But the news is most importantly for customers, I think, about integration. What is the joint value proposition between AWS? And this was just, okay, our stuff works on AWS, come and get some more of our stuff. I think it's a missed opportunity.
So, John Santaferraro, I think there is a little comment there in terms of integration. I don't know how clear that is, but when you talk about pricing consolidated billing through AWS, that would be a very deep integration because they are sort of holding your bills, right? They are sort of processing payment for you. That's a much deeper collaboration. So they have a little bit of it. Sometimes it might not be as clear, but they definitely have that.
But I think that's table stakes. It's like you could be a small software vendor and get that kind of a relationship with them where you're not only in the AWS marketplace, but all of the billing can be done. The ordering, the activation, the billing can all be done within the system. I think, I get it, but I think it's still a missed opportunity.
Yeah. More comments, guys? Okay, then we are close to our time now. So now we can do the final thoughts, and this could be a free flow conversation. You can talk about whatever you want, guys. Okay, you don't have to stick to the script and the story anymore.
As if we haven't done that.
Hey,
Well, this is a real
No
analyst
agenda.
group. This is a real analyst group. We go to our own tune. March Tuesday. Is that what it's called? Marching to your own music?
Okay, John Hansen, do you want to start first?
Oh, thanks. So I read a coffee, so I'm out of ideas. No, it's just been a very interesting year, very interesting discussion. To me, I think there's major changes that are coming. But we've got to go back to the basics. We've got to go back to understanding our businesses, our structures, and not think that AI, agentic AI, or any version of AI. There's the world models coming now. I'm sure you've all heard that, right? The new world models from Jeff Bezos and LeCun. But we're all going to continue to run into the same walls we did with technology all along. Is it doesn't fix up or replace human expertise and experience. And you need to get that understanding within your organization. The technology is great, but you got to learn how to drive the car first.
Yeah, you definitely need to learn that. Thank you so much, John, for that. John Santaferraro.
How about a 2026 prediction? I believe it's the year that people are actually going to learn how to use generative AI, because they haven't figured that out yet. It's everything that most people are doing is really basic. I think it's the year that people learn how to use it.
Great prediction. Thank you so much, John, for that. King on. Do you want to go next?
So on my 2026 prediction, I'm thinking that this is the year that we actually start meaningfully investing in employees and organizations to build an appropriate foundation for being able to leverage AI, because that is probably one of the biggest things I've seen, and it's not getting any better just because of the pace of innovation. If we're not doing it, 2026 is going to be more of a train wreck than 2025 was.
Yeah, it's not getting any better. Thank you so much, Kengon. Thomas?
Well, I would put Kengon's prediction into the wish category. I wish that happens. and I wish one more thing, which is that vendors finally get into, when they are talking about agentic AI, generative AI, and all this stuff, that they are more talking about the outcomes and the value instead of the technology. And as we have seen in this list of releases, that's basically more technology and hype and hyperbole as value. So this was really a step back to what we have seen earlier this year already. So my wish is get better vendors.
Yeah, and that I'm going to put that into a wish category as well. I don't think that's ever going to happen because of the real world conflicts and constraints.
That's probably the pipe dream category.
I think we all have to be afraid the Matrix police are going to be coming after us.
Yeah, there is always a possibility. All right, guys, so that's it for the show. And by the way, guys, I'm super grateful for you all as well as the audience for this year. This year was amazing. We produced roughly 45 different episodes. We are going to bring much better content next year. This year, I think this is the last show. We are not meeting again. There's going to be a little bit of timing change. So now we are going going to meet on Fridays. So hopefully a lot of people can join. I think they were not able to join because of Thursdays. So Friday we'll try to do it at 11 a.m. Eastern. There could be some changes at times if anybody's traveling, but I'm super pumped and excited. So I just wanted to wish everybody happy holidays and happy New Year.
Same.
Yay.
Enjoy.
Thanks. Okay. Bye now.
Take care, everybody.